Every tree has roots, every life has branches, and every adoption has a story. Some stories begin with questions, some begin with loss. All of them are rooted in love and the search for connection. This is Janet Monroe, and this is Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, a podcast where real stories take root and grow. Because the more we share, the more we understand, and understanding helps us grow. Now, here's Janet Monroe.
Hello, and welcome to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories. My name is Janet, and I am your host. The roots represent the beginnings, the birth parents, the adoptee, and the adoptive parents. The branches are the far-reaching effects of adoption, the siblings, the family members, and friends whose lives are forever changed. Today's story is one of love, resilience, and saying yes when family needs you most. Sherri's journey took her from raising her own children to blending families to opening her heart and home to her niece when tragedy struck. Her stories remind us that family isn't always planned, but it's always powerful. Get ready to be inspired by a story of commitment, courage, and the kind of love that truly makes a house and home. Welcome, Sherri.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet.
Can you tell us about your early family life, your marriage, your two daughters, and how you navigated that divorce?
Yeah, I was married pretty much right out of high school. I was a high school sweetheart. We had two children. It didn't end well, unfortunately. It was a very dysfunctional relationship, but navigating that divorce was a little tricky. As divorces can be. There was a lot of narcissism and abuse, and it took a lot for me to leave. But the main driver for me to leave was because I had two girls, and I did not want them to grow up in that kind of household. And when it became apparent that it wasn't going to change, I knew that I had to make better choices for them so that they could have a good model to follow and make better choices when they were adults. So we did, after almost 10 years, we parted ways, and everything became final, and I had custody. And so then I was a single parent for quite some time after that.
Did you have full custody of the girls, or was it split visiting rights?
We did have shared custody. We did, yeah. So that went back and forth. He remarried right away to a woman that was 10 years his senior, and had 3 children of her own. And it was difficult. It wasn't. They had a very difficult time. That ended in divorce shortly after that as well. So the kids saw a lot of that, kind of rocky road on the other side. So, but yeah, we had a shared custody. I had primary custody of them. But then they had weekends visitation, and then there was some times when I might have been moving or had a job that took me into nights or something that they stayed there more extended, so there was some of that too.
How did you meet your current husband?
So that's a funny story. So I met him at the mall, which makes him very nervous when I go shopping, because he's like, I never know what you're going to come home with next. Came home with a husband once, who knows what's next. Actually, he was I worked with the city. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce in the local community, and I was volunteering with the city, and they had put on a celebrity look-alike contest. This was in California, and we were about probably an hour and a half outside of Hollywood. And so that was kind of the thing. And so we had put that on at the mall, and he had won first place. And so...
who did he look like?
Yes, so he won the Drew Carey look-alike contest. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so then how did you end up marriage, and how did you end up blending your families together?
Yeah, so he had full custody of his 3-year-old son when we met. And so, which is kind of unusual for the dad to have full custody, but he did. And I have to say, being a single parent, my girls were teenagers at that time. They were like, I want to say they were probably 13 and 15 about the time that we'd started dating. And so they were much older. He was he was a very attentive parent, which was impressive to me. I had dated by then. I had started dating a few different people and things like that, and it was, a lot of dads were looking for replacement moms. They were out of their league, out of their depth, and it felt very much like they just would take anybody, and that wasn't for me. I wanted a lasting relationship, so I felt like his attention to me was really for me because he could handle it all on his own. He was perfectly fine on his own. He did not need me at all to help him with parenting. So that was very appealing to me. And then we dated for about a year. And then we went to Las Vegas and we got married in Vegas. And because I didn't want him to move in, he wanted to move in. And I'm like, I'm not moving in unless we get married. I wanted to set a good example for my kids, I thought, at the time. They both ended up living with their spouses before they got married. But I was trying to set the right example for them. But and it's fine. They did what they did. But that's why. So I said, you can't move in unless we're married. And he's like, well, then let's go get married. So we did. And that was 25 and a half years ago. Mm-hmm.
All right, so what was some of the early challenges and joys of creating a blended family?
Boy, I tell you, we realized real quickly that we were in the deep end of the pool for sure. We got along good, but I think he thought, he had very different ideas about, he hadn't raised teenagers. And so here he was all of a sudden an instant dad to these teenage girls. And, by this time they're 14 and 16 and they got their friends and a life. And anybody who's parented teenagers understands that they start creating an alternate life. It's not all about you. They're not always home every night for dinner. Sometimes they have jobs or friends and they're kind of coming and going and doing things. And you're keeping tabs on all of that. But he was like ready to have the whole, let's all sit down around the table dinner every single night. And he would make dinner because he loves to cook, which was a bonus for me. So he loved to cook, but he would be a little disappointed when all of a sudden he would find out that the girls weren't going to be home. What do you mean they're not going to be home? So he was used to his 3-year-old son, who's now 4.5, that was, and I think he missed not having that part of the time raising them. So that was a little tricky to navigate. A lot of communication and bridge building that had to go on between the two. Sides, and it took a little bit. It took a little bit. I had my youngest daughter. She pushed back a lot. She pushed back against anything that he asked. So we found that the best way to handle things were really for the natural parent to be the disciplinarian if any kind of discipline correction needed to be given. I'm not talking about corporal punishment, but just that discipline of, hey, you don't talk that way, or go to your room, or anything like that, or you're losing your cell phone, or you're grounded or whatever. That it was, especially with the older, it was a little easier when you're young, if you get them really, really young, but we just found that any kind of discipline or correction really needed to come from the natural parent.
How did his son connect with your daughters?
They were very close. They liked that. I think they were in the same boat, getting used to each of them, kind of getting used to another parent. And my girls were very nurturing too, so that was a bonus for him. And they got along. They actually got along very well. It was a good fit for them. And again, he was getting used to me. They were getting used to his dad, and so they kind of, I think, had that in common a little bit. But they were very close.
All right, so then you're going to bring your niece into this family.
Yeah.
How was she as far as age compared to the other three?
Yeah, so she was kind of right in there because I had one born in 85, one in 83, and she was born in 87. So she was sort of, right there in that. And as far as the girls go, I had flown, so she had been in a group home in Tennessee, and they were going to put her in foster care. And so Dean and I, we spoke about it, and we thought, if there was any way we could avoid foster care, was she was family. I had not talked to her. I'd written her letters, sent her some gifts. I hadn't really even seen her in person since she was about 4 years old, because that's when her mom and her moved to Tennessee. Other than just talking to my sister and, hey, how's she doing? What's going on? I really didn't have any communication with her, even though I would have liked to have. It just didn't work out. So I flew back to Tennessee to meet her. We got a weekend pass from the group home that she was in, and I took her to dinner and took her to the spa and got her a few things that she needed, and just spent time getting to know her, who she was, would she be a good fit in our family, was she too traumatized, whatever. And I really felt like if she just had a level playing field with some different life experiences. She was very bright, she was very intelligent, she liked some of the same things we did. She was a foodie like we were, she liked coffee like we did, so that she had some things commonalities I thought we could build on. Plus I felt like she was intelligent, she got it. Didn't know if her heart was completely in it, but it was definitely for her better than foster care. So she didn't really know us, so it was a big leap of faith for both of us on both sides. So we petitioned the judge. I wrote the judge a letter. I had lots of community awards and different things on my wall, and I photocopied all of them and kind of gave him took pictures of the house, showed him where she would be, mailed that all to the judge, and without me having to appear in court, he released her to our custody. And I'm sure he did his background check on all the things I sent, but
So what put her in a position to be looking at foster care?
yeah, so she was, she's had a life that nobody should have ever, no adult should ever have to have, let alone a child. And she was 15 years old, and she was at a Holiday Inn, and she got arrested at the Holiday Inn with her 19-year-old boyfriend. They were running a meth lab in the ceiling of the Holiday Inn in the room. And so we didn't have much experience with drugs. None of us really, that wasn't really our thing. So we didn't quite really know what we were getting into. But she had now been in this group home for a year. So she was clean. And that's when I saw her and met her and really liked her a lot, and thought if we could give her a different life, maybe we could make a difference for her, and get her on a better path. So when she came to live with us, I flew back and got her. I had to buy luggage and everything. I flew back and got her and brought her to California. I'm sure she was very nervous, and she kind of kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, holding her breath all the time. Like, okay, when are they really going to show their true colors? She was kind of amazed that we were just so nice and normal, I think was her terms. She said, I always thought people like you were always so mean or like something. And she's like, you guys aren't, you're just so nice and normal. It was a little of an adjustment for her to trust, for sure. But we were determined, and we took her on lots of things. We went to Disneyland right away. We went to Six Flags right away. We did different things to try to give her things. Because one of the things she told us was, she said, when people say, oh, what do you like to do? Or where have you been? Her whole life had been abuse and drugs and used up and just horrible things that she went through. She didn't really have anything to talk to people about. So we quickly moved to give her some life experiences and some travel. We went to Washington, D.C., we went to New York, we tried a lot of different things so she could say, oh, I like to travel, or oh, I love this, or I love that. So we tried very quickly to get her hiking, anything to give her other life experiences that she could talk about.
All right. So how did your daughters and your son adjust to having another child in the home?
Yeah. So it was an adjustment for sure. There was, they were all teenagers, and teenagers kind of they kind of have their own code, right? They're kind of more tuned into each other than you are sometimes. So they would talk to me about things and give me some insight on some stuff, but they can also be very secretive. So you really have to make sure that you keep those lines of communication open. And so, of course, we talked to them before we brought her in, and we let them know that if it would turn into some horrific nightmare of an experience or something, that we didn't have to live that way all the time, that we were all going to try this. And we had told my niece the same thing, like, look, we're going to try this. You don't have to live, you don't have to be here permanently. Like, just would like you to give it a try, because she was going to be leaving some of her best friends behind in Tennessee that she'd grown up with. And that was a lot for a big ask, but she had planned to just run away if she'd been in foster care. That was her plan. So she, kind of a little bit reluctantly, but she caught on pretty quick, and they adjusted pretty well. We tried to do a lot of family things together, so it was very important that we did things as a family, playing cards, family game night. Everybody had their assigned chores, things like that. So there was some structure, some organization, a lot of love and patience as well. Everybody had their own rooms, so that was I think that was very important. So they had their private place that they could go to gather themselves if they needed to.
So how you have your own children, you have a blended family, and then you adopted your niece?
Yeah, actually we got legal custody of her. She was older by then, because she was 16 when she came to live with us. So by the time we kind of figured it all out, she was already 18 years old. So we didn't actually formally go through the adoption process, but we did go through the court for legal custody. Unfortunately, she graduated school straight A's. She was very smart, and she went to culinary school and graduated with honors there. And she even worked the Oscars with Wolfgang Puck before, in the back, just helping chop lettuce and stuff like that when she was in culinary school. But she had a lot of talent and a lot of neat experiences.
What is the difference between raising your own biological children, adding a blended family, and then adding someone else in who you had legal custody of?
Yeah.
Just like an adopted child.
Yeah, you do have to have the mindset and the heart, the patience to do that. But it's not as hard as you think. I really do believe. I mean, when I saw her, it was like I instantly fell in love, and none of them were more important to me than the other one in the house. I wanted them all to be at peace and at ease and feel that love and have that wind beneath their wings that would lift them and help them rise. So individual time was just as important with each one, so they felt seen and heard and important. And that you didn't lose that connection with them individually, so they all needed to know that. But they also all knew that they were equal, that they were all loved equally, and that was very important. So yeah, individual time was very important. Individual time was very important, as well as group time, family time, and that kind of thing. So very important.
Did you have questions about identity and belonging, and where do I fit from your niece?
Yes, yeah, we did. She often felt like she didn't fit in the family, and we did have her, because of her problems with drugs and addiction problems and things like that. We did seek. She did have a therapist that we hired that she could talk to kind of help work through some of those things. But that was hard for her. She did eventually not feel that way. But it took some time and some commitment, because they don't really trust it. I think sometimes what happens is when they mess up, well, I've seen it. I know this is what happens when they mess up. And they do, because they're kids, they're in training, right? They don't come out of the womb knowing how to do everything perfect. And then if you've had somebody who's been through all this trauma and had all these life experiences, then they really need a little bit more, coaching and training. So, but when they mess up, they tend to get they beat up on themselves, and they can really withdraw, because their fear is that you're going to send them back or push them back. And they'll almost shake the tree to test you to see if you are going to give up on them. Like, where is that boundary at? So you have to be prepared for that and understand kind of what's going on. And once they really feel like, yeah, you aren't going anywhere, are you? Like, I can't believe you're still sticking out with me. Nobody has done that for me, and you still are. it takes them time for them to reconcile that in their brain. Some get there quicker than others. It just, everybody's different. But they eventually, you can kind of see, it's like when somebody finally relaxes and their shoulders drop and everything they kind of exhale. They have that moment where they can exhale, and that's just really empowering. And it's beautiful to see when that finally happens.
So, in the meantime, now that your niece has left home and she's had a child of her own,
yes,
which you have now taken into your family,
Yeah.
so we've gone from an empty nester to having a child again?
Yes. Well, one of the things was my niece really had a hard time staying sober. She once she graduated and had her degrees and all that stuff, she moved out within 6 months. And we were concerned because we didn't think that she was ready, but they're 18, they want to do this, what are you going to do? So the door was always open, but she very quickly, to get an apartment that she could afford, was in a neighborhood that maybe wasn't so great, and all she had to do was look out her window and there were drug deals happening and right out in the parking lot. And unfortunately she fell off the wagon, if you will, and has had a very hard time staying clean and sober. We have put her in multiple rehabs. We have done a lot to try to help support her sobriety and her being clean, driving her to the meetings back and forth, doing, making her, pay the consequences for her actions, but still being supportive of her. And when she called us and said, I'm done with this life, I'm tired of it, we're like, okay, we put her into a 90-day rehab, and she called us from the rehab to tell us she was pregnant. So she had asked us at that time, she said, how big of a sin is it for me to get an abortion? And so we were Christian and we raised her Christian, but we told her that the choice was hers. Obviously, we don't really have any say in that. But she wanted to know what the Bible said about it. So we shared a few scriptures with her on that, and we appreciated that she did seek that counsel, but we told her ultimately it really is up to her. This is a huge commitment. And that, but if she could not raise this baby, that we would. And so she did opt to have her, and she had a little girl. And we took her right out of rehab. She came and lived with us, and then I was there. I got to cut the umbilical cord, so that was pretty exciting, and be there for the birth of that child, which technically is my grandniece, but she calls us Grandma and Grandpa because her cousins call me Grandma and Grandpa, so we're Grandma and Grandpa to her. So it was a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, my niece still struggled with addictions off and on, and we told her if she started to raise this child the way she had been raised, that we would move heaven and earth if we had to take her. And we didn't have to move heaven and earth. She unfortunately, they were in and out of the home. I can't even tell you how much we tried to really level the playing field for her over and over and over again. We, here where I live in Fort Worth, Texas, there is we had no standing before the court, so we had to be very careful and just be very supportive of her daughter until she could have a voice in saying that she'd had enough and wanted out, because being a grand niece, we were not recognized as immediate family, so we weren't the natural grandparents, even though my sister had since passed. We had no legal standing at all. So it wasn't until we got CPS involved eventually when things turned. It was never enough. We kept checking. Okay, we found out this, we found out that was not enough. And we did not want to pull the trigger too soon because we would lose access to our grandniece. And we didn't want to lose access to her because we were keeping an eye on her well-being so that we knew when to pull the trigger and have an exit strategy there for her. She didn't know any of that was going on and that we were doing that for years. We were watching because we were very concerned. But we'd talk to police, we'd talk to attorneys, we'd talk to CPS, and it was just like never enough. Even though we were horrified, it was just like, we understand how you feel, and it should be enough, but it's not. And we're like, okay. So we're like, how bad does it have to get? But eventually we were able to get her.
So how old were you when she came into your family first?
She was 10 when she came full time with just us without her mom. Again, she'd lived with us off and on this whole time, so we were very close. We had a good relationship. But she was 10 years old when she came. She had just turned 10, as a matter of fact, when she had come to live with us full time.
So do you have legal custody of her? Have you adopted her? Or how has
Yeah.
that worked out?
So we actually had sought legal guardianship. So CPS gave us temporary placement, and then we became her legal guardians, court-appointed legal guardians. And then we told her that we would love to adopt her if that was something that she wanted. Didn't have to think about it, didn't have to answer it right now, but just wanted to know that it was on the table if that was something that she felt compelled, or wanted. And then we just kind of left that alone. Didn't badger her, didn't ask her again, didn't really do that. And she came to us this year and said that she would very much like it if we would adopt her. So we are moving forward with the adoption proceedings. We have let the biological parents know they're fine with it, and they get it. So it should hopefully go through pretty smooth. So we're in the process of that now. So it's very exciting.
It must be.
Yes.
So what would you say that this journey has taught you about family and commitment?
So that's a good question. So much, so much. Really, family is precious and fragile. It is something we're fighting for. It takes patience and courage because families come in all shapes and sizes. And I think it's not a one-size-fits-all. It really isn't. Not in this day and age. It's just not. There's too many external factors that are pulling and tearing apart families and the fabric of families. I would by no means say I was a perfect parent. My kids would be the first to tell you that, I'm sure. Probably made up many of the mistakes, but we learned a lot, and I think some would tell you that we did okay too. And certainly the child that we have now with us, she gets the benefit of all of that experience, of all of the what not to do as a parent, right? So I'd say be patient with yourself, and really, you don't want the kids, teenagers, they'll beat you up. They will, because you can't do anything right to a teenager. That's when they start figuring out that you don't know everything and that you are wrong about some things, and it's kind of shocking to them, right? But they become parents, and they almost always go back and say, I'm so sorry. I gave you such the business. I get it now, And so it does come around. Just be patient because it comes around. We're all doing the best that we can. Seek help. Get help, professional help if you need it. If you think that will help, there's nothing wrong with that, and there's no shame in it. Sometimes a little guidance or a little help is okay, and don't be offended by the things that your kids, remember that they're in training, and that's the one thing that we've always tried to teach the kids is that, look, you're not in trouble, you're in training, and it's okay, and we have to correct you because we want you to be we want you to be well equipped for a job, for school, for life. And that means it's our responsibility to train you now. So we did everything more at that angle, and start younger than you need to. Have those conversations at much earlier ages than that you had to when we were growing up. It's not the same world out there, and they're exposed to a lot more at alarmingly young ages. So have age-appropriate conversations, but do them much younger, and set the rules. We set rules very early that we knew they were rules for when they were teenagers. So when they had friends over, we said, leave the door open all the time. The door stays open. At least you can't shut the door when your friends are over. Didn't matter. And that way, when they were teenagers, that was just kind of the normal thing. It was always that way. It wasn't like all of a sudden we didn't trust them. And come from a place of yes when you can. The world is full of no's. No, you can't jump off the roof into the pool. No, you can't you can't do this. No, you can't do that. No, you can't pop wheelies down the no, you can't, so when they say they want to build a lemonade stand, celebrate that. Say, sure, go ahead. They'll probably fizzle out in 10 minutes and go back to watching video games, and that's okay, but at least you're not the dream killer all the time. You need to be able to support their dreams and not constantly, because we're already thinking, well, you don't have a hammer, you don't have nails, you don't know the first thing about it, all the reasons why they can't do it. And we could rattle that off and kill their dream instantly, but then they never grow and try and figure out their own resilience, and they might impress you. They might build that lemonade stand. You never know. So just when you can come from a place of yes, try to do that, and let life give them that lesson, when it's safe to do so, rather than you constantly being the reason why this won't work and that won't work. They do need to figure that out on their own in so many ways. It teaches them so many more lessons than you could by constantly smoothing out the path in front of them.
I like the way that you really said that they're still in training, that they're in training. And to be honest, Sherri, I'm still in training.
Yeah, me too.
It never ends, to be honest.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. We do the best we can. We do the best we can.
Mm-hmm. So how have you and your husband kept your relationship strong while managing such a complex household?
Well, that's a good question. So there was a time that we, very early on in the marriage, when we were a blended family, we did go to counseling, and that was very powerful, and it worked very well for us. It wasn't a very long-term thing. It didn't take much, but that really honed our communication skills with each other, so that was good. But we stayed true to, to date nights, to making sure that we had time with each other that was aside from the kids and that kind of thing. And I will say that we always kind of treated each other like we were still dating in a way, meaning that yes, we dealt with all the problems and everything, but we tackled them together. We had to communicate. You have to, because kids will get right in the middle, and you wiggle a wedge in there, and you don't want them to be able to do that either, because it's not healthy for them or for you. And so we still had fun. We kept our sense of humor. That was the thing, is to keep the sense of humor, and we traded. Sometimes I was carrying the heavy load when he couldn't, and sometimes he was carrying the load when I just had enough. So we supported each other by carrying that load back and forth with each other. So we were very blessed to have this family, and this very blended family, and had each other to carry that back, both committed to family. I have to say he's very committed to family too. We don't want to give up on family, so we didn't. It doesn't always work out as it did in our case. It's not always the perfect happy ending, but there is a lot of just memorable experiences and feel-good moments and beautiful moments along the way that you just can't put a price on, that I wouldn't trade for anything. So even though my niece is still struggling through her addiction and still trying to find her way in this world, we're rooting her on secretly. We're hoping she finds her way. But we had an amazing time, and we felt like we did our very best with trying to give her. And she'll tell you that she's very grateful. She's very grateful for what we did for her. And it's just that some forces are more powerful than even the love that we have for her are.
Looking back, what are you most proud of in your family's journey?
What am I most proud of? I think the fact that we stuck through all the good times and the bad times together as a family, and our family's intact. We all communicate, we all stay in touch, love each other. I think that's really the most beautiful thing of all, and that I'm most proud of. That 25 years of marriage, my mother-in-law once said to us, all the things that we'd been through, most people would have been torn apart by divorce, and she was very proud of us for not having that happen to us, that not be part of our story. So I think the fact that we've been we've lost jobs, we've had good incomes, we've had poor incomes, we've pivoted, and we've had to move, we've had to figure it out, we've had new people come into our lives, we've had some difficulties there with teenagers, like you always do, but we managed to stay connected through all of that, and connected as a family. And I think like with my oldest daughter, she has 3 children of her own now, and I think watching her parent is probably one of the things I'm the most proud of, because she's an amazing mom and she's a great parent. But I think better than I was. But that's what we want. We want each generation to get better, right, and learn, right. And so I think she's a beautiful, beautiful soul, beautiful parent, and I'm very proud of her and for being able to do that. The other ones don't have children yet, but I'm very confident that other than my niece, but my other daughter and son, they don't have children, but I'm confident that if they did, they would be amazing too. Absolutely.
Today, parenting, as you say, is different to what it was when I grew up or when you grew up.
Yeah.
They have to be more on top of everything that's going on,
Yeah.
right? So, yes, so I'm proud of my family, so I'm glad that you're very proud of your family and the journey that you've had. What advice would you give other families considering adopting within their own family?
So don't take things personal. Understand that your boundaries are going to be tested, okay? They are. And you have to be ready for that. You cannot be thin-skinned. Keep your sense of humor and your line of communication open with your partner. Don't let the kids try to wedge in there, okay? That's important. And do things together as a family, and be patient, because you don't know what traumas or what's going on in their head, and they're not going to tell you. It's going to come out in a lot of different ways. Their fear, their anxiety, their sense of neglect or an abandonment, anything that they're feeling. I would say counseling is huge. It will be helpful, but also that you just have to be patient for that and know that. But it is so worth it. It really is so worth it. And that adjustment period does not last forever. It can be a very short amount of time. It can be a very long amount of time. And it's really up to the child to dictate how long they need to heal. You can't force that or push that. So you just kind of have to, I always liken it to, like, if you're feeding a hungry squirrel in the forest, right? A starving squirrel, and you have a handful of peanuts. If you chase the squirrel with the peanuts, it will run from you. It doesn't care if it's starving. But if you just sit there long enough and you're patient, eventually that squirrel will trust you and come and eat out of your hand. And that is kind of how it is with these children when you get them when they're older. I'm not talking about babies or maybe toddlers, but when they're older like that, they're very... yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see, because they've been so disappointed. And so it takes time for them to come and eat out of your hand because they trust you. So be patient.
When your children, biological or adopted, are listening to this episode, what message would you want them to hear from you?
I would want them to hear that I'm very proud of them. I think they're amazing people, all of them. And I'm so proud to have been a part of their lives and a part of their journey into adulthood, and that I hope that they know every day how much we love them.
And what do you hope your story shows other families about stepping up for each other?
I hope that it inspires them to not give up, and to be able to manage the difficult times with grace and humility and with a sense of humor, because I think you need all of those to do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sherri's story is a powerful reminder that family is about more than blood. It's about love, commitment, and stepping up when it matters most. Her journey through blending families, raising her own children, and adopting her niece and grandniece shows us the strength and beauty of saying yes when family needs you. If you connected with today's story, please subscribe, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can listen to all episodes at rootsandbranches.adoptionstories.com. And I'm Janet. Thank you for joining me in breaking the silence and the stigma around adoption.
Thank you for tuning in to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, where every tree has roots, every life has branches, and every adoption has a story. Got an adoption story you want to tell? Want to learn more about adoption stories? Then visit rootsandbranchesadoptionstories.com.